Okay, hi class. Back for the recap or look ahead to week two. So week two, you'll be doing a number of different things. In week two, you'll be talking about really how to select pixels, retouching, and a lot about more layer masking and blending of images. So kind of more focusing on like close to what you'll be doing for project one. So I have an image here that I downloaded from FreeWeb of free images, and it actually shows you how they took the first image and actually retouched it for the second image. So when you go to your photographer, a lot of the times they will do something like this. So what I'm going to do is go do a sort of like a really quick tutorial. I mean, they have a lot of different ways to retouch things and different kinds of photos. First, I'll do is in using the crop tool. One of the things that you can do is you can crop an image to crop out this part. Now, one thing you'll notice is when I hit the crop tool, it constrained to this size, and that's because in this little area right here in the crop tool, I have set it to 4 inches by 6 inches, 300 pixels. Why did I do that? Recently, I was cropping some images, so that means every time I crop the image, uh, it'll be exactly 4 by 6 wherever I position it. So if I move the mouse left or right and I want to crop that image, it'll always be 4 by 6 to 300. Hit enter. So if I go to the image and hit image size, you will see it says image 4 inches by 6 inches, 300. Now that's if you want to set your crop to a very specific size. If you don't want to do that, go back in the history, then you can just remove it, just delete all the elements in all the contents in those boxes, and then you can just it'll free crop any which way you want. So in this case, I just want a free crop, so I can just do that. But if that happens, and it'll remember whatever you did the last time. So if you were doing that before, it'll remember your last. And this is really, really cool when you're trying to create something of a very specific size, like 300 by 300 pixels. You can type in 300 pixels by 300 pixels and hit enter. And if you go to your image size, you would see it was 300 pixels by 300 pixels, 72 dpi. Okay, so that's a nice little trick right there. Always give you a little tip of the day. So, so I'm back to the beginning. I was going to crop the first time. So one of the tools I like to use to retouching is the patch tool. So the patch tool is this one right here. If you don't have it on the first one, just hit this element. It'll show the different menus. Hit the patch tool. What's cool about the patch tool is it really makes it really easy. You can just select around an image that you want to change, and then drag it into an area that's kind of clear. And what Photoshop will do is really just kind of take the same text here that's over here and bring it over here. Okay, so you can kind of do that, kind of go through each one, and you can't do the entire thing. You have to kind of do it a little bit at a time. Obviously, if you come over here, it's going to bring that little piece in there. So you kind of want to get an area that's clear, and it kind of blends everything in for you really nicely. So that's a really nice tool to kind of work in there. And even though the color was different from this area, so let's say like this area, it still kind of blends in this area. Just takes the text here from that one. So that's probably what they did because he has a lot of spotches here. It's probably something what they did to to create that other image. And you're not gonna always get it the first time. Sometimes you have to do it a couple times, get a pass. But as you can see really quickly, just kind of drag it away. And to deselect an image, if I select like this and then I drag it, you've created. Once it's selected, you can hit Command D, or you can go to Edit, Select and Deselect, and it'll go away. The marching ants go away. So if you kind of look back, you see already it's looking a little much better. So from the history panel, what's pretty cool about the history panel is you can go original, or let's say let's start from here. So that was when I cropped it, and all the way down here is the last one I just did. So it's already looking better already, right? So that was before the spotches, after the spotches. So you can really kind of play around with that too. You can also use The clone stamp, a little bit careful, more careful with the clone stamp, because you have a much bigger area to work with here. You have to change your size of your brush in the clone stamp, or change the size of the stamp. And one thing you want to do is, on the clone stamp, you want to hit the Option key to take this area and then clone it in that area. It's a little bit more tricky just because it doesn't blend in as well. But sometimes with the clone stamp, if you wanted to do something like really weird, um, and you made a much bigger brush, and you clone that, and then you can kind of, put his eye up there, and it gets really weird. But the clone stamp, you have to be a little bit more precise just because when you clone something, it sometimes takes in a lot of the other area that's around it. So if I clone this, it's really cloning what's really close to it. The bigger the brush, the more it's going to clone. So the patch tool is probably the one that you want to use if you have things like spotches on the face that you want to kind of get rid of. The clone stamp is really good. Let's say if you wanted to add some hair, and you want to come here and add some hair to him, right? So the clone stamp, so that was what it was before the hair. Let's go back a couple. So here, and then now I add some hair right there, right? So the clone stamp is really cool just because, sometimes I've had to, Photoshop people's hair and had to add some, you can get that nice texture. As you can see, as I mouse over, you can see what's going to be cloned. So you have to be really precise with the clone stamp, and make sure with the clone stamp, if you're doing things like skin, that you have the brush on a blurry brush, not a hard brush, because a hard brush is going to give you, if you choose a brush that's like this, it's going to give you a very hard edge like that, and you don't want that. So you want a soft brush if you're using the clone stamp, so you get a nice blend on the outside. Okay, so the other thing you're going to be doing a lot of is layer masking. So in this instance, I'll go back to my original, let's see, document I had with, I create a new document here, and I'm going to bring those two files back in. So one of the things that you're going to, as I mentioned in the first week, you just drag your two images in. So I have two layers and a background layer. So I'm going to hide the background layer right now. I don't really need that. Let's say I wanted to, bring the image, and I want to blend that image in. So what I can do, and you're going to learn a little bit more, is you're going to create a mask. So you can, create a mask, a quick mask, by using this tool right here. And then you can use your gradient tool, and you can drag the gradient right over the image, and you can see it starts blending in. So you have to kind of get it right the first time. So go back to my history, the layers panel. So it's a normal, that gradient. So make sure you're on the white area when you create a mask. As you can see, the image starts blending in a lot better on the background. Now, if you want to move the image, you want to make sure that you select, this area, and you can see it's moving with the mask. So you can also do different things with the mask, like you can then take your brush tool. So if you go on the mask and you take the brush tool, let's say you get a bigger brush, and then you can paint some of that image out. So right now, I'm using the brush tool on the mask. If I want to bring that mask back, or bring the image back, I can hit the X tool, and I can actually bring some of that white back. Now you notice I get the hard edge now because I did the gradient at first. But say I didn't do the gradient, I can bring that back. If I want to take it away, I can then do it again and take it away. So right now I'm just taking it away without the gradient. So I'm actually painting where the image would be and kind of blending it in. Of course, the larger the brush size, the more area you can cover, but you get it sort of less precise. Obviously, if you're doing something like here, you have to kind of really get in there and make it much more precise. You want to leave these white edges. And you can certainly use uh, a smaller brush to get closer in. And there's a lot of other tutorials that you can use for hair that's a lot more effective than using the masking tool, when you will be using channels to also get rid of some of that image. But going back to the beginning, if if you just have, let's see, two images on your layers and you have a layer mask, use the gradient tool, make sure it's on black and white because there's a lot of different colors for the gradient. So notice how if I could actually do it, a very short gradient, it's not going to do much. Well, I can start all the way out here and drag more, or I can go all into the image on top and it's going to blend more and more. But sometimes you have that they have that extra line, you don't have to go in on the mask with the brush, nice big brush. It's not going to touch the image per se, and then you kind of mask some of that image away and kind of blend it in. And you can change the opacity of this as well, so you can have like 50% opacity. So it's not a hard edge where you masking it in. And if you took a bigger brush with the opacity, you can then you can kind of blend it in, almost like when you see a barber that's cutting hair, and he won't just use one clipper, right? You'll use a little bit, and then he takes it off and he changes it and kind of blends it in, almost like you're using color pencils. So you can kind of really mess around and blend that in there, kind of get that ghost image. Okay, so you're gonna learn about that, the masking tool, blending photos and selecting pixels. So the other thing is, if you're selecting pixels, a couple different ways to do that. Obviously, if you use the magic wand and try to select something, you're gonna get something like this. But certainly, if I started on the white area, let's see, and I selected that white area, let's see, where am I? I'm on this image. I try to select the white. I can get some of that white out of there. But notice I also get it into the books. That's why you have to use the masking tool. Because if I deleted that, I have to actually change this. Right now, it's the image is a smart object. So if I rasterize the layer, I right click and rasterize the layer and deleted it, that's what I'll get. So that'll be the quick, really, really bad way to do it. And you wouldn't want to do that because you can tell in here the selections get all inside of the white because originally the image was white. So there are a lot of other ways you'll learn this week in selecting an image. You certainly can use the lasso tool to select sort of areas that you can delete. And move the layers over here. Select that image. Again, I have to rasterize the layer. And I could delete that, but again, I end up with a very hard edge. So you can select things in Photoshop, but also you'll learn by using channels how you can select things like the hair. That's going to be much more precise than using something like the lasso tool, which you would have to painstakingly sort of go around each grain of hair, and then you would have to make sure that you didn't deselect it all the way around. So it's very complicated to do something like here using the lasso tool. So using channels is a much better way of selecting large areas. So layer masking, retouching, selecting pixels was what you'll be really kind of going through in week 2. That will set you up for your project 1. I encourage you guys to start earlier in project 1. Make sure you read all the instructions, look at the videos, look at the examples I posted online. If you guys have any questions, this just takes practice. Some of you are not going to get it the first time. It's going to be a little frustrating, but stick with it. Keep practicing. Feel free to post stuff on your discussion boards if you want, in the project to ask questions. But give it your best shot. Project 1 is not due until week 3, so you can certainly start practicing right away. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Over and out.